I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Pierre Perifel, the director of The Bad Guys, as part of Gold Derby's Meet the Experts film animation panel. First thing I wanted to ask you is what sort of imagery did you try to use in this film that's normally associated with heist movies? What sort of imagery did you lift from heist movies for this movie?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the sort of imagery, of course, we got influenced and did quite a bit of research in terms of heist films and the heist genre itself. But definitely, getting inspired by, the cinema of Soderbergh, obviously, that would be the first one to come into mind. I think for us, it was really getting the feel of Los Angeles first, because the movie is happening in LA. So how do you get that look and that feel while still being stylized? Because of course, as you know, The Bad Guys is a kind of a different style a little bit than you would see in traditional CG movies. And so, how do you capture that look, the Los Angeles look, which is basically all those lens flare and the white skies and the dusty city and the kind of the layering of the city and the bleached sky of the bleached path of the skies and stuff like that. And so incorporating this, but also using all the tropes of the heist films, and therefore a lot of it comes through cinematography, and so using a lot of the long shots, like long camera relays between characters and situations, definitely the split screens, making sure that you have like fun transitions between the character or the situations when we're talking about heist or the heist sequences that we did. And on top of that, for Bad Guys specifically, brought in my own how would you say, like influences, coming from more European style and animes as well, and so therefore peppering that in on top of it. So action sequences would be very influenced by animes and and the graphic novel type of look that comes from some of the more illustrative type of graphic novels from Europe. So it's kind of like it's a blend of everything. It's a big bag of many influences, but definitely in terms of the heist genre, it's like making sure that every sequence has its iconic color coding within a bigger color theory kind of underlying all of it, but making sure that you really understand and really have a very strong sense of where each sequence is happening.
So, we were talking about, what you drew from for these, especially like with the heist scenes. But the other thing I was curious about is the thing that to me is very striking about them is how they're edited together.
Right.
And I was wondering, what did it take to edit these elaborate heist scenes, especially when you're working in animation?
A lot of work. It's interesting because so at the script level, we would have sometimes rather undefined pages, so we knew what the character were supposed to be doing, of course, having the goal of each sequence and making sure that, our characters are each assigned a very specific role. But then how do you emulate that feeling of heist, and on top of that, layering a level of humor that is very, that I wanted for the film and for younger audiences, of course. And so what usually I was doing is like take some of those pages, do a little bit of a brainstorm with my story team, and kind of do like a task forces with a few story artists that would just go on there on their own for a few days, weeks, and really just like break down the whole sequence or sequences, and come back with a proposal, while really being referencing all these heist films. And so they would really work very hard on crafting this sequence meticulously, making sure that it really feels and breathes those kind of film genre, and come back, and then we'd refine that in edit, cut it, just making sure that we have also a soundtrack supporting it, and sometimes cutting it to the soundtrack. So it keeps that pacing, it keeps the dynamism, it keeps the energy, but still at the same time also having the stylization of those kind of sequences in cinematography already in storyboard in the animatics. So a lot of back and forth between story, script, and edit. like kind of a constant rotation there to make sure that we nailed it. And then we move on to Previs, and in Previs they would add, the precision of the longer camera, the longer shots and the drifting cameras that you can't really always do in story.
So you got a really fantastic cast in this movie, including people like Sam Rockwell, Mark Maron, Awkwafina, Craig Robinson, Anthony Ramos, and Zazie Beetz and Alex Borstein. What was the experience like of directing this voice cast?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is an incredible cast. I really, we took so much care trying, like, casting these guys, because we're wanting some, like, a sense of sophistication and try to avoid the usual suspects for a movie like this, and so kudos to our casting director just to nail that casting. The first one to say yes was Sam, actually, and of course Sam is such a beloved actor, and the rest of the cast kind of quickly said yes to join the project. What was it like to direct them? And for me, it was my first experience actually directing actors, and so of course at first it's always a little bit of a panic mode, where you try to figure out, how to do it, because in animation, coming from animation, I'm an animator myself, and so the way you would launch shots for an animator would be just talking about staging first, the kind of like big stage direction, and then just go slowly deeper into the acting and making sure that your animators understand the motivation for the character for each shot, and craft the kind of poses you want and all of that. For an actor, it's more like, obviously, on a sequence level, and also making sure then they understand where the character is at emotionally at this precise moment, and at the same time you're also directing those actors more than one sequence per recording sessions, and so you have to have a very clear vision of where the story is standing at the time of recording. But you also have to give the right indication that they can be emotionally available for that kind of for the acting that you're asking for, right? And for me, it really came down to connecting with my cast, or the actors, Sam and Mark and everyone, like on a bit more of a personal level, so I can really understand their problematics as a more like a friends or human, like, so we can really collaborate on just creating and crafting those sequences, and making sure that they would bring their own flavor to the characters, as opposed to me dictating everything, and then just really just reading with them and trying to not read in a fashion that was too like trying to give a lot of energy to the way I was reading the other characters' spots. Sam brought his best friend to read with him, so obviously, being an actor, he was a lot more suited than I am just to actually help Sam go through his sequences, But he was the kind of the only one doing it. The other thing that we did, and I really wanted to try, was like recording simultaneously these the different characters, and so having the many actors in the same room, so the same recording room. Not always easy to do in animation or in recording studios, because you're trying to just make sure that every take is very clear sound-wise, so that your edit team can actually just take out exactly what they need from each performance. But when you go into COVID, that actually helped us, because they were all sent kits at their own separate places, across the globe, really, and then we could just have them remotely record together, and that would give you that very very natural type of performances that you can get between characters, like kind of mimicking a little bit what you could get in a live action setting, But to me, really understanding their process, their personal process, so that I could direct them in a way they would feel comfortable.
So you were able, so you actually would like host them all on a video call and have them do the recording, so that they were able to do it, interact with each other
live, like at the same, like kind of like literally just playing off of each other. But like you said, like a Zoom meeting or whatever meeting, but like with each of them being either at home with their recording microphones, or in different sound studios across the country, just that they could record separately, but at the same time, because we're all like remote, doing it at the same time. It was
Well,
incredibly powerful, actually. It was really fun.
Pierre, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
Yes, and thank you. Thanks, guys. See you later. See you later.
I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Peggy Holmes, the director of the Apple film Luck, and as part of our Meet the Experts panel for film animation. First thing I wanted to ask was, I think the thing that's so striking about Luck is that world is the luck world, the world of both good and bad luck. And I was curious as to what sort of effort went into designing the worlds of luck that Sam journeys to.
Oh my gosh. Hi. Yeah. Thanks so much. We had done a lot of research. We had a development team do research on luck icons, colors, numbers, international, all around the world, symbols, right? And so the first thing, I think it was actually the first week I came on the project, I took that packet. Obviously, I had reviewed that packet, and then I had also done research on luck myself, good and bad luck, and humans are obsessed with it, by the way. There's so much material out there about luck, but there's a very clear rule that we discovered in doing the research, which luck is random. Luck is random. You don't know when it's coming, you can't create it, right? So we took that sort of packet of sort of luck research all around the world and the fact that luck is random. And we gave all of that to our production designer, Fred Warder, who's really amazing. And we talked to him a little bit. I talked to him a little bit about kind of the heart of the story and what I was looking for in terms of sort of creating a really magical, entertaining world, because the heart of our story was so grounded. And I thought those two things would be interesting together. So we gave Fred the packet and he came back, and the very first image he did for the movie was two worlds sitting on opposite sides of a coin, good luck on top and bad luck on the bottom. So it's actually sort of his brain, just came up with this really cool image. And we were like, yeah, let's explore that. Let's make that work.
I was also very curious about, we've all had our experiences with luck, some good, some bad, some more than others. And I was curious, were there any parts of Sam's continuous bad luck that particularly resonated with you?
Yeah, I think for me, sort of the idea that, she has this moment, this great physical comedy sequence where she has this moment where she pulls the knob out of the door, and it just, once she opens the door, then the other side of the knob falls on her foot. To me, that's the one. Those are the ones, like, you can't even see it coming. So those are the ones that make me personally laugh a lot. Yeah.
A lot of that laughter that comes from, oh yeah, I've been there.
Oh yeah. And us as humans, we love telling our bad luck stories, because I think we like the idea that we made it through. We made it through. We often don't tell our good luck stories that much. It's really about, as humans, we like to bond over things that we've been able to triumph over,
Definitely. You have this amazing cast in this movie, and I think probably the most striking one is casting Jane Fonda as the dragon. What was it like to direct Jane Fonda, especially for a voiceover performance?
Right. So she had not done this before. So what we decided to do was to bring her into the process. And we literally made the whole movie over Zoom. So we would have story meetings over Zoom. And we had the artists go ahead and pitch Jane their sequences, just like a regular story meeting. And Jane was just a part of it. So after we had, given her a script and talked to her about the heart of the story and all of that, then we brought her into that meeting so that she could start to see how the story artists were dealing with this 40-foot dragon, the kind of shapes they were making, the kind of posing they were giving her, and you could see her. She's such an amazing actor and such a curious person. She wanted to know how it all worked. And so you saw her in that meeting start to take on the poses and the persona. And, she really started to take on exactly what she was seeing in those storyboards. And so even in that meeting, she was like, look at my tail. My tail is so long. I should wrap it around my body like a boa. And, so there's moments that happened in that great creative meeting with her that are in the movie now. And she really took to it. When she went to record, she remembered every image she saw. So we just continued to work with her that way.
So this movie does come from a source material, a book, and I'm sorry, I was reading a different question. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
In addition to designing the different worlds, you have the different characters in there, and I was curious as to, was there a character that was particularly challenging to find the right design for?
I think it was maybe not the design as much as finding the right spirit for Sam, our protagonist, right? Because she is the unluckiest girl in the world, experiencing the kind of humorous bad luck that we all can experience, any day of our lives, but also real life bad luck of, growing up in the foster care system without a family. And the movie starts where she's 18 and she's aging out of that system. And so we were lucky enough to meet with these young adults who had very similar lived experience to Sam and had grown up like that, had aged out of the system and were alone in the world, making their lives happen. And we were so struck by, despite the real life bad luck they experienced, they were so hopeful and positive about finding family, about making their life better, and super generous to their friends. And we were so taken by how positive they were, despite their real life bad luck. It was threading that needle for our lead character and like making her super unlucky, but super positive and keep going. So I would say that's probably something we worked on a lot.
Was casting Eva Noblezada, was that also a difficult thing for finding that right voice for Sam as well? Was that also a difficult process?
Yeah, it wasn't too hard, actually. It wasn't too hard. I designed the physicality, the physical character I designed after my family. So my mom is half Filipino, English, Irish. And so that's kind of what my family looks like. So we looked for actors that had that similar background. And Eva was one of them. And she was just incredible. We knew we wanted someone to sing a song at some point in the movie. And, she's an incredible singer. She's starring in Hadestown on Broadway right now. So it wasn't that once I heard her, I was like, there's our girl. That's her.
That's right. She's in the original cast of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's where I knew her from. I saw her in Hadestown. Okay.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's really, really amazing. And then this was her first time doing voiceover. So it was, again, just like really exciting journey to watch her learn a new medium. It took a little while, of course, understandably. And then once she kind of got the feel of it, she just took off. She gave a great performance.
So I do have to ask, because I feel like I'm required to, because I am very much a cat person, and this has wonderful depictions of cats in it. Did you draw from love of cats with this, or are you just not, or was that antithetical for you?
No, I mean, I do love cats too, but I'm not a cat obsession. I don't have a cat obsession. We wanted Bob to be like really funny and appealing and, appear to be one thing and turn out to be another and have those kinds of great twists. So, yeah. And we just wanted those eyes, we wanted really big eyes. So.
And, also you also have someone like Whoopi Goldberg in there, probably just as much on that same legend level as Jane Fonda. What was it like to direct her?
Yeah, it was like a masterclass in comedy working with Whoopi. She's, first of all, so generous, but here was her process on this particular movie. We would read the script through a couple times, do a couple records, and in those two first records, she would improvise and add all these moments and play around and add this and see someone who was behind her and, just add all these great moments, kind of improvising with the scene, right? And then she'd go, okay, let me do it like an adult now. And she would literally pull 2 or 3 of those amazing gems that she found when she was just improvising and playing around, and dot them into the scene in the most precise, perfect way, adding the best of what she just discovered by letting herself be free. It was super awesome to watch and be part of. It was incredible.
Do you have a favorite one that made it in there?
Oh gosh. I love when she says, she has this line where she's going after Bob. She's got a thing about Bob. And I love when she says, and Bob, if it's you, I'm really going to enjoy this one. It was so great. So great.
Well, Peggy, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby. And today I'm speaking with Mark Gustafson, the co-director of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which will be on Netflix as part of our Meet the Experts film animation panel. This project, Guillermo first talked about, I think back in 2008 was when he first started talking about this project. Were you a part of that film from the beginning or from very early on, or did you come on board later?
I came aboard about 2012 in one of the earlier iterations of it, and we worked on it for a year or so, on and off, and then the film went into hibernation, I'll say. It was a very, very difficult film to pitch. We went to all the studios with it, and they seemed very, very enthusiastic. And obviously, Guillermo is he's incredibly talented at pitching movies because he's just so warm and gregarious and passionate about this thing. But as soon as he said it takes place in Italy during the rise of fascism, their faces would sort of go ashen, and we were shown the door.
And the other thing I was curious about with the production was the production, because it's stop motion, which is so heavily involved, which is such a meticulous medium. Was the production of the film affected by the pandemic at all?
Very much so. Yeah, there came a point where we had to just disperse. You know, it was that day when I'm sure everybody remembers that moment. They were like, "Oh, the world is different now," and we all just left work. But what we did was many of the artists were able to work at home, like in their basements, continue to because they had all the kit, a lot of them, so they were able to continue making props and armatures, and so we kept it moving. Obviously, it slowed it down somewhat, but Netflix was an incredible partner in this thing, and they said, we're gonna keep funding you, and we're gonna keep everybody on board, whether they can work or not right now. So we had this beautiful continuity across the pandemic, and we were able to then just ramp up again.
So you've done a lot of work in stop motion over the years, and I was curious as to what drew you to work specifically in stop motion animation.
Well, I was in art school and here in Portland, and that's where Will Vinton Studios was. And I remember one of my teachers at school said, "Hey, you should meet this guy," because I needed to do an apprenticeship in my last year. And so I went and visited the studio, and it was just this crazy place where these grown-ups were playing with dolls, and there were all these miniatures, and I thought, oh my God, is there any way? And so yeah, they wound up hiring me right out of school as a PA. So I just was running to picking up stuff at the hardware store, and yeah.
As I said, stop motion is it can be a very trying thing, medium to work in. And I know probably a lot of the scenes were difficult, presented their challenges, but what scene did you find the most challenging to film for this movie?
Well, probably just purely from a technical point of view, it was the shot of Spezzatura the monkey entering the carnival and going up to Volpe's cart and knocking on the door, just because it was a very long shot. And there were so many characters and this huge camera move all the way through this thing. So it took us months to set up and test. And then it took about 4 weeks or so to shoot. So I would say that one was probably the most complex technically.
You mentioned that earlier that it's that an important part of this that it's set in during the rise of fascism in Italy. What made Guillermo want to set it in that time?
Well, I think it was just a really interesting backdrop that sort of reinforced some of the underlying themes of the film, and that the notion of, we had Pinocchio, who was a puppet, and yet he was the most independent character in the whole film. And fascist Italy, that was a place where everybody was expected to walk in lockstep, follow orders. And so Pinocchio, being this force of anarchy, being injected into that, really made for great contrast between our principal character and the world that he was in.
So you have this incredible cast in this movie, including, people like Ewan McGregor, Ron Perlman, Sean Turturro, Christoph Waltz, Tilda Swinton, and Kate Blanchett. How did that cast come together?
Guillermo del Toro. He had relationships with a lot of these folks. He had worked with David Bradley on a number of projects. He had just worked with Kate Blanchett on Nightmare Alley. And in that case, she came to him and said, "Hey, when can we work together again?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing this animated film, but all the parts are already cast." And she said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Well, there's a monkey. He doesn't have any lines." And she said, "Sign me up." So she signed up for that. And then, I think Ewan, I don't think they had ever worked together before, but when Guillermo calls, people tend to say yes. And he turned out to be an amazing asset for the film. I mean, his performance is one of the best ones, and he's very, very warm, and his voice just exudes, this charm.
So, I mean, you and Guillermo were directing this film together. What is that collaboration process like at working as co-directors on a movie?
Well, fortunately, we found that we had very, very similar sensibilities. So it was ultimately quite easy because we thought about scenes and story and character in very much the same way. And, obviously he brings this whole history with him of all his experience at live action. So that's great. I can, I learn from him every day. And the word masterclass was used. It's like, it was like a masterclass every day, and I'm sure that I learned something from him as well. That's a joke. No, he's just, he's so passionate about this character. We all just were caught up in it and wanted to give our best work.
I mean, it's interesting that you talk about how that the kind of aura that he has around him. And was there any sort of like impromptu things that he tried to bring along for this movie, like sort of like any sort of like trying to adjust like the look of things or wanted to make things look a specific way?
Yeah, I mean, I think he felt like animation a lot of times is too animated, and particularly for the story we were telling. So there's a certain restraint that I think we exercised throughout the film. Also, we were really trying to get at something very real with these emotions. So we spent a lot of time really trying to figure out how to make these more intimate scenes feel very real, so that the connections between the characters were strong, and the payoffs were bigger.
What sort of material did you use for the I don't want to say dolls like you said earlier, but what sort of material did you use for the animated subjects?
Well, you can call them dolls, puppets. Their skins were mostly silicone, and then of course all the cloth. They're dressed. Pinocchio was the exception. We actually printed him, and it sort of made sense because he was made of wood, and we really looked at the way he moved and tried to give him a very specific language that was quite different from the other characters in the film.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit. I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Joel Crawford, the director of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, as part of our Meet the Experts film animation panel. First thing I wanted to ask was, what brought about the idea? Because the first Puss in Boots movie came out in 2011, I think it was. What brought about the idea of doing this movie over almost a decade after the first one was released?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to see you again. I don't think the studio's original plan was to release the next chapter of Puss in Boots over a decade later, but it was interesting because Puss in Boots is such a beloved character and really stole the show when he appeared in Shrek 2. And from the taking on a character that kind of beloved by fans all over, the studio really was being pretty picky of going, we got to make sure it's the right next story to kind of extend the Shrek universe and keep that going. And so there's been many really smart people over the years who've come and gone that have kind of found unique ingredients that as part of the Puss in Boots world. Actually, Guillermo del Toro was consulting on the first Puss in Boots and then even on the second one. And we were talking about that the other day, how this idea of Puss being on his last life was such a great nugget. And that's something that's actually resonated with me when I came onto the project. I think one of the things that really unlocked it was there's a huge story here to tell that expands not only the fun, adventure, swashbuckling of Puss in Boots, but also the depth. And that kind of nugget of an idea was Puss has burned through 8 of his 9 lives, and that's absurd. It's a fairy tale. That's like a perfect kind of fairy tale premise. But when you boil it down, he has 1 life, and we as human beings only have 1 life. And there's something really deep and special about that opportunity to take the absurdity and put it with the reality. And that was my kind of pitch to the studio of we could really, expand the look, the style, the tone of this next chapter of Puss in Boots.
When you talk about the look of it, one of the things that really struck me about the movie was how when there were fight scenes, it went from looking like computer animation to looking more like a comic book almost in the movements and the way and the style that it was done. How did you make those fight sequences look so much like that in this movie?
Oh yeah, it's honestly for me, and I think a lot of people here at DreamWorks, it's such an exciting time in animation where the studios are really embracing the different styles of what a feature animated movie can look like. And as you see with Bad Guys this year, it's awesome, like how Pierre's embraced this 2D kind of style. And for us, we took the premise of Puss is in this mindset of he's a larger than life hero who's kind of living like a rock star, and everything is kind of a fairy tale to him. So we wanted these action scenes to feel fantastical, not grounded in reality, and using animation techniques such as going to stepped animation, which is things being held for more than one frame. Where CG, you're used to everything kind of being a little bit more grounded and being on one frame and smooth. It allowed for us to really push these poses that do remind you of a superhero. And we used it in that way to take the audience with Puss's kind of psyche of, I'm a fearless hero. You're just enjoying these action scenes, and they feel like choreographed and amazing and fun. And we'd use like stepped animation for that. And then when we wanted moments that are more grounded, when we want that contrast where he's realizing, wow, I have one life, we go to the animation on ones, and it's more smooth, and it's actually there's more reality in it. And so finding a way to go, we've expanded our toolbox, and we can really use that as our visual vocabulary to communicate with the audience.
The other thing that's so striking about this movie is, again, such a great cast. In addition to, Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek coming back, you have people like Florence Pugh and Olivia Colman, Ray Winstone, and John Mulaney, and Gillen in it as well. Was there an actor or actress whose voice recording session was particularly enjoyable to direct?
Honestly, I have so much fun with the cast. And this cast alone, I can't pick just one. And they're each so unique. I'll give you having Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek reunite on screen is amazing. One thing that we realized is, we do our research. We really get into the psychology of these characters and make sure we know what we want when we're putting it in the script. But man, when we started recording with Antonio Banderas and Selma, they were they know the characters way better than we do. And one unique thing with them, they also are lifetime friends, Selma and Antonio. And so we'd be in sessions where they're not recording at the same time, but they know each other so well. Selma would be like, did Antonio do it this way? And she would almost do an impression of him. And so there's this amazing chemistry they just find that they really kind of elevate the material. And I'd say all of the cast found unique ways that, more than just bringing their amazing acting chops to this, they were great partners in finding the story. And like John Mulaney, so smart, quick, and hilarious. In one of our first conversations about this story, we were saying, this is like the good, the bad, and the ugly. You've got all these hardened, larger than life criminals who are after this ultimate fairy tale prize, in this case, the wishing star. And they all think, this one wish they can get is going to fix something in their life. And John very astutely said, and he plays Big Jack Horner, who's he's definitely the bad in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And John found such a kind of poetic thing he said, all these characters, Big Jack Horner included, are trying to fix what they think. They're trying to grab an external thing and fix an internal void. And they think that will make them happy. And from there on, all of the actors started to really tap into, you have all these broken people who think, if I just had this one thing, it'll fix my life. And in conversations with each of them, we found unique ways. We actually rewrote after we talked to them to find ways that their characters all pointed toward this thing of, they're chasing happiness. And there's this central idea of gratitude and appreciation that just rose to the top throughout process and is one of the like powerful kind of themes in the movie, and really credit that to all of these actors. In addition, they all would make us laugh so much. We would improvise every time we were together and really just, see how far we can go, and go too far and then pull back. So it was such a fun process.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our panel in just a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Don Hall, one of the director of Strange World from Disney, as part of our Meet the Experts film animation panel. First thing I wanted to ask was, what were some of the challenges you faced in designing the incredible world of Avalonia?
Well, I mean, it was a beautiful challenge. So I'm just gonna try and speak to this without doing any spoilers, because the movie hasn't come out yet. But so the Strange World is a very mysterious world. Like when we enter Strange World, it's very much like, Journey to the Center of the Earth. We go from this world of Avalonia, which is this, fantasy world, a kind of a retro future world that's surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there's a journey underneath that takes them underneath. So it's very much like Journey to the Center of the Earth, where they find another crazy new world. And there are some rules governing this strange world that become apparent later in the film. It's a reveal of what is the true nature of Strange World. So we sort of had that. We and did a lot of research into different biomes and living systems, et cetera. And then really what I wanted is just to kind of create a blank space, a blank canvas for these amazing artists at Disney Animation to just let their imaginations go. And ultimately, I was just sort of the cheerleader, just ushering them to go weirder, go stranger, and just embrace this, just the limits of their creativity, which was boundless. And it it led to a really unique and specific and beautiful world.
I just had this image of you being brought a drawing of something, and you're like, I need it weirder.
Yeah, that was kind of it. Yeah.
So actually, you alluded to some of this in your previous answer. Because it felt like there were a lot of homages to things like pulp magazines and old science fiction films. You mentioned Journey to the Center of the Earth, and I was wondering if you could tell us about some of the material for both of those, the pulp and the science fiction, that you drew from for this film.
Well, I mean, very early on, that was part of the research, right? I got to kind of, I knew this was going to be a big adventure film and evoke that sort of subgenre, I'll call it, of the adventure film, where a group of explorers finds a hidden world with amazing creatures and a lot of times dangerous creatures. King Kong, I guess, being sort of the cinematic example of that. But so I got to go back and reread Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Edgar Rice Burroughs, The Land That Time Forgot, and all of these things I loved as a kid, and I just got to introduce myself to them, and just because I love that stuff. I mean, it was such a joyous experience. And then for the pulp of it all, these pulp kind of magazines of the 40s, 50s, that really were instrumental in kind of the character, I guess, of Jaeger Clade. I mean, he taking that archetype of the adventurer, that kind of hyper masculine adventurer that seems to always be in conflict with nature, and getting to kind of deconstruct that a little bit and look at it from not as him as the main character, but him as the father of the main character. That felt like a really fun way to examine that, because this is a generational story. It's about fathers and sons, and it really all goes back to when I first started the project. I was thinking about my kids and what kind of world. This was around 2017, as I came off Moana. What kind of world are they inheriting? What kind of world did I inherit from my father, who was a farmer, and wanted to tell an environmental story, essentially. and about what it means to be a good ancestor, and tell that through the lens of 3 generations in one family. And then, of course, have that be, the delivery device for that story is going to be a big, giant, epic adventure story that, much like Journey to the Center of the Earth or Lost World.
So this is another film that has an incredible cast, including people like Jake Gyllenhaal and Dennis Quaid. How did the cast for this film come together?
We have an amazing casting director at Disney named Jamie Roberts, and I think it was probably after Qui, who is the writer, Qui Gwynn, who's the writer and co-director of Strange World. He wrote probably a treatment, I think. And Jamie read that and gave us a list with these exact actors. And I think we were like, yeah, this would be amazing because we're fans of all of them. And would they really want to do this?
Were you just like, yeah, that's great, let's get them?
Yeah, pretty much, and to a person, I think they all responded to the pitch, to the story. We brought them in and always wanted to meet with them first and just get to know them independent of a recording session, and so we scheduled all that and got to know everybody, and you could tell from the first meetings it was going to be a kind of a joyous experience, and similar to I've been listening to everybody else's stories, and very much in line with that, where they really embraced these characters. They really had a take, that they came in with. And as far as the improvisation, I mean, yes, we did that. We welcome that because it adds spontaneity. There's a lot of improvised lines in the movie. And of course, Jabuki's a wonderful improver, Gabrielle Union, but also Dennis and Jake and Lucy as well. They got to know their characters well enough to be able to improv and be specific with that. And it really was just a really joyous experience. The only thing that kind of, I wish we had the opportunity to do was work together, as a group, because just the nature of their schedules, because they're so busy and separate, sometimes separate continents. And it's really hard to kind of schedule all that. But I mean, someday, maybe the next one, someday I would like to do that, where you could, just carve out some time for everybody to be together and kind of workshop it as a group and build it from there. And I suppose if you had enough time, you could maybe schedule that. And so I'm looking forward to that someday. I think it'd be a blast.
So, we are an awards site, and you have had quite an experience with awards because you were one of the people who won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature for Big Hero 6 back in 2014. That was the year it came out. I know the ceremony was in 2015. What was that experience like?
Oh man, it was like a out of body kind of thing. It was just the most wonderful night ever. It was so much fun. We were so proud of that movie. There were so many great movies that year. And just to be, counted amongst, the rest of those filmmakers was such a wonderful honor. And then to be, to get the Oscar, it was, I remember some stuff, but a lot of it was just sort of this out of body experience type of thing.
I can only imagine. Don, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit. I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and I am hosting this Meet the Experts panel for film animation with Pierre Perifel from the movie The Bad Guys, Peggy Holmes from Luck, Mark Gustafson from Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Joel Crawford from Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, and Don Hall from Strange World. First question, and I love asking this of people who work in animation. What was the thing that you saw in animation, the animated thing that you saw that made you say that I want to do that for work? And I want to start with you, Peggy.
Oh, gosh. So my first part of my career, I was actually a dancer and a choreographer in live action. So I was doing a lot of live action films and television shows for Disney, and the music executives, Chris Montan, Matt Walker, asked me to come in and consult on a song sequence inside of an animated movie. And in that meeting, when I first went to kind of look and consult on the choreography of that song, they had a story artist there, Ray Shenessay, for to start working with the ideas that I came up with. And when I saw kind of Ray start to draw out these rough ideas of things that I was posing or talking about, and just saw the collaborative nature of animation that is like so collaborative, with each, you know, idea or moment building on each other from different artists, I fell in love with it. That was it for me. So later in my career, because dance was my very first love. Yeah.
What about you, Pierre?
It has to be Glenn Keane Starzan. So Glenn, for the production, Disney had actually asked. There was a collaboration between the California studio and the Parisian studio. So I was in front, of course, no idea that you actually could work in animation. There was people actually doing their work and doing those drawings. And so he decided to animate all of his characters with the French studio. So the French marketing campaign for Disney at the time was releasing a lot of his line tests, or their line tests, pencil tests, as a marketing tool, right? I remember going to the cinema to watch the film and seeing all over the cinema on screens, before you go into the actual theater, all of those pencil tests of Tarzan and the branches and the trees doing like skateboarding and rollerblading, and I was like, what is that? This is magic, and that's the bug that got me at the time. And I was like, I want to do exactly that. Just before that, I was like, I'm gonna be a car designer. I love those, sketches. And immediately on that day, everything changed. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is absolute magic to me. Like seeing those papers and those lines of those drawings actually come to life was just mind blowing. And so that's when I realized people were doing it for a living.
And what about you, Don?
Well, I mine goes back way much deeper in time. I think I was probably, I don't know, maybe 6, maybe 5, 6. We pre-video. This is pre-video, and so there was a local theater in my small town in Iowa that I would go to, and Saturdays they generally played the animated films or Godzilla films or Ray Harryhausen films, and so that was my thing, and I would go there all the time. And so it was probably around there that I saw, I can't remember if it was Pinocchio or Dumbo. They kind of blend together in my brain, but it was a Disney animated feature, and I was hooked for life. And that was just, I'd never really, other than comic books, which I love too, and the common denominator was drawing. I just love to draw. I still love to draw. It's my favorite thing to do in the world. And that, knowing that that's how they created those films, that was it. I was hooked, and that's what I wanted to do. It took me a while to be able to get here, but it was the hook of a Disney animated feature and the fact that it was drawing and the magic of drawings on screen.
And what about you, Mark?
I think for me, it was seeing Jason and the Argonauts and seeing that skeleton fight as a kid. It just blew my mind in a way. I'd never seen anything like it. I had seen more sophisticated effects, but I don't think I'd ever seen anything that affected me that way. And I think it was because I could tell that somebody had done it, and then as I looked into it, I found out one guy had done it. And that was just, and then, later on in life, I discovered that Will Vinton Studios was right in my own hometown. And so I was able to go there and join them. So.
And Joel, how about you?
Yeah. Similar to all of you, I always loved drawing. I think I was probably around like 8 or 9, and I mean, at the time there was a fork in the road where I was a hyper kid. So I was like, I either want to be an artist, but it was just kind of a general thing, or a stunt man. And I was like, one of those. And I think I picked the safer route, thanks to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I remember going to a drive-in movie theater with the family and watching that on the screen. And it was, always loved, all kinds of animation, but there was something magical about all of these characters from different worlds, all these animated characters being in one place and interacting with live action actors. And there was something so like, there are no boundaries to animation. And that it was, I think I went from that day of like, I want to be an artist. Maybe it was like, no, I have to do this, create worlds using animation.
So one of the things I think has been interesting about animation over the past couple of years is that we've seen that animation really is, it's not a genre, it's a medium, and you can tell all sorts of stories. We've even been seeing documentaries come up like last year's Flea, but also Persepolis, Waltz with Bashir, Tower, all those. And I was curious as to what kind of stories would you like to see told more through animation? And I want to start with you, Pierre.
What kind of stories would I want to see more done in animation? I think stories, to me, that I think it's kind of echoing a little bit what Don was saying, and I can't wait to see your movie done, actually, because I think like having a heavy messages that like carry on through generations, and in my opinion, the problem of environmental issues that we're facing, these kind of messages that are really resonating through and inspiring new generations in a slightly deeper way than just be yourself sometimes, but because animation tends to do that a lot. And we're actually moving away in the last few years. I think things are really changing, in my opinion, and I'm sure Mark and Guillermo's have done like definitely in the messaging through Pinocchio is it's going to be incredible. But I think that's what I'm kind of looking for, like how can I inspire my kids the same way live action could inspire it, but maybe in a what's cool about animation, it's just like it just imprints your imagination so vividly, and therefore it's so easy to grasp what those worlds are and those characters are because it's simplified. And therefore, in my opinion, the way we tell our story and the visuals will help carry that message through to younger generation and our children. Really, that's what I'm really looking forward. And therefore, there's so much more we can do with animation, in my opinion, and also really not taking our younger audience for more stupid than they are. They're really, really clever, and therefore we can really tell intricate stories through this medium.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't think that we should be talking down to young people. I think they can handle a lot more than we think they can. They're more sophisticated, and I think animation can be more sophisticated. It can be for adults as well, and a lot of it is. And the truth is, I want to be surprised. I want to see another generation come along and push animation way further. And I want to be sitting here going, how did they come up with that? Because I think animation, you can tell almost any kind of story with it. So I think that the future of animation is very, very bright.
What about you, Joel?
I mean, it's in the spirit of improv, I'm just going to yes and what you guys are saying, because it really, I think so much animation already exists that is pushing boundaries, has pushed boundaries of what audiences expect. And I agree, Mark, where I'm like, I just want to be surprised by where it goes next. I think it's really bringing the general audience around to the point of view of all of us animation fans and animation, professionals, which is we know it has the opportunity to go beyond this kind of narrow, conventional animated family audience. And what I mean is pushing the boundaries of what topics are discussed within these movies. Seems like the way to just keep the audience coming to animation by making these movies interesting, but not just visually, but also challenging concepts. And we talked about this before, even Don, with that the greatest thing kids can come out of the movie with are questions and conversations with their family, so that it's okay to have challenging kind of topics in a movie, and it could still be a family movie, but it initiates conversations afterwards.
And what about you, Don?
I mean, everybody so eloquently put their answers are so beautiful, and I concur with all of them. I will say it does feel like we're at a moment where things are shifting a little bit, and the future is kind of wide open. I would agree that we've all been in that situation where somebody finds out, you work in anime, say you're at a party and somebody finds out you worked on a film, and they innocently say, oh, and it's an adult, and they say, oh, I really liked it. I thought it was really good for a cartoon. And you're like,
Yeah.
you have to smile. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Because you know what they mean. And they didn't mean any ill will. It just meant, and ultimately there's a compliment behind it, which is like, hey, that movie appealed to me too. And so this perception that animation is just for kids is obviously, we collectively, we in this panel certainly never had that viewpoint. I mean, to us, I think it's always about ourselves first, right? We're the first audience, but for everybody. And so I slowly see that perception breaking down. And I think each year that perception is slowly kind of eroding, which I think is great. And it's a testament to the great work that every year these wonderful people like everybody on this panel are choosing to express themselves in this medium of animation. And it's a broad medium too. It's it can encompass hand-drawn animation, it can encompass stop motion and CG or all of the above in one movie. So it's an incredibly exciting time, I think, to be in animation, because the future's wide open.
And Peggy, how about you?
Yeah, I want to agree with Don about the sort of this idea of, we have a moment in our movie where this cat, Bob the cat, hugs Sam, our protagonist, right? And it's quite a touching moment. And I have to say, at our general audience preview, somebody shared with us, this adult male shared with us in that moment, I was taught men don't hug, and that cat today told me I can hug, I can do it, so I think that speaks to kind of what Don's talking about, in that I think that animation, because it's a heightened reality, I think you can let your guard down and kind of experience something emotionally that maybe you wouldn't be willing to do if it wasn't animation, because it's this heightened reality. And I think it makes you feel safe to kind of explore things within yourself that maybe you wouldn't have done. So I think continuing to just tell these amazing stories that are based in some emotional truth of some sort, that brings up, what Joel was saying, questions or challenges your perspective. That's what I'm seeing. And I think that's what's so, so exciting. And I have to agree with Mark, like I'm waiting for the next, whoa, who thought of that? Who thought of that? That'll be so fun.
Well, Pierre, Peggy, Mark, Joel, and Don, thank you so much for being part of our panel this time. This has been wonderful, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
Everybody.